What up? What up? Welcome back. Starting us off today, we have Mark playing Judith Carnage Connoisseur, Spellslinger Rakdos. He's trying to give spells lifelink and death touch that shouldn't have lifelink or death touch. I'm going to be bringing back my Be'lakor the Dark Master deck with the companion, Gyruda, trying to make a bunch of clones of my demons and deal 6 damage to the table over and over again with my commander's ability. Ashley is going to be playing her Baldur's Gate 3 inspired Lae'zel deck with Lae'zel, Vlaakith's champion, and the Acolyte of Bahamut. This is going to focus on Lae'zel's story through the Baldur's Gate 3 campaign. And lastly, we have David playing his Anrakyr the Traveller deck. This is from the Warhammer 40k precon, and this mono black deck is trying to outvalue the table by using his graveyard as a second hand. Let's go ahead and get into the gameplay. Mark starts with a command tower, then he casts a turn 1 Soul Ring. He'll tap it to appear less threatening. I'll play a Scalding Tarn. I'll crack it to go fetch a Xander's Lounge and pass. Ashley plays a Canopy Vista. David plays an Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth and passes. Mark plays a Mountain, then casts Young Pyromancer and pass to me. I'm going to play an island into a Talisman of Indulgence. Ashley plays a Core Haven, then she taps out to cast Nature's Lore, fetching an Arctic Treeline. David plays a Swamp, and then casts Mind Stone. Mark drops a Swamp, then gets to cast his commander, Judith Carnage Connoisseur. Whenever he casts an instant sorcery, he can give the spell Death Touch and Lifelink, or create a 2/2 Imp token. Moving to combat, he sends Young Pyromancer at Ashley with no blocks. She takes the damage and he passes it to me. I'll play a Blood Crypt tapped and pay to put Garuda, Doom of Deaths in my hand. Ashley plays a Path of Ancestry, then she'll cast Acolyte of Bahamut. It discounts her dragons when her commander's on the battlefield. David plays a Swamp, then he casts Jorah's Familiar for some historic discounts. Mark plays an Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth. Moving to combat, he sends both creatures at Ashley. Ashley responds with a Path of Exile targeting Judith. Mark responds to that by Chaos Warping his own Judith. Chaos Warp triggers Young Pyromancer and Judith, so Mark makes a 2/2 Imp and a 1/1 Elemental. Chaos Warp exiles Judith and Path of Exile fizzles. From Chaos Warp, Mark doesn't reveal a permanent, so Mizzix's Mastery goes to the top. Mark casts Mahadi Emporium Master before passing the turn. Mahadi has an end-step trigger to make treasures for each creature that died this turn. Since Judith was exiled, he doesn't get any treasures. Going to my turn, I'll cast Undercover Operative. I'll have it enter as a copy of Mahadi with a shield counter and pass the turn. Ashley plays a Forest, then casts Korra the Boundless Sky. It should be noted that she used the discount from her enchantment even though her commander wasn't on the battlefield, but she has 2 mana to pay for it, so this doesn't impact the game too much. She'll pass the turn from there. David plays a Swamp. Then he casts Flayed One. On ETB, he'll mill 3 cards, then he passes the turn to Mark. Mark plays a Badlands, then he recasts his commander. Moving to combat, he sends the 1/1 at David and the 2/2 at Ashley. David takes the damage, Ashley blocks the Imp, and we're all dealt 2 damage when it dies. At his end step, Mahadi triggers and Mark gets a treasure token. I play a Luxury Suite. Then I cast Rakdos the Showstopper. David responds to that by casting Deadly Dispute, sacrificing his Jorah's Familiar to make a treasure and draw 2 cards. Then on ETB, Rakdos has me flip a coin for each creature that's not a demon, devil, or imp, and destroy any creature whose coin comes up tails. The Elemental gets heads, Young Pyromancer gets tails and is destroyed. Judith gets tails and is destroyed. Cura gets heads. Lastly, the flayed one gets heads. I move to end step and Mahadi triggers. I get 3 treasures and pass the turn. Ashley plays a forest, then she casts her commander, Lae'zel, Vlaakith's champion. If she puts counters on a creature, planeswalker, or herself, she puts an additional counter on that object. After that, she plays a morph creature face down and pass the turn. David plays a reliquary tower, then he casts his commander, Anrakyr the Traveller. If I said that wrong, let me know in the comments. When it attacks, he can pay life to cast artifacts from his graveyard or his hand. Mark plays a Storm Kiln Artist. It's a Spellslinger staple, generating treasures for casting or copying instants and sorceries. He'll pass from there. I start my turn by playing a Warstorm Surge to deal damage when my creature's ETB equal to their power. I play a Shivan Reef, then I cast Phyrexian Metamorph as a copy of Rakdos. The Elemental gets tails and is destroyed. Stormkiln gets heads. The Morph gets tails and is destroyed. Lae'zel gets tails and is destroyed. Cura gets heads. The Flayed one gets tails and is destroyed. Anrakyr gets heads. Then I deal 6 Warstorm Surge damage at Stormkiln Artist. The Rakdos copy dies to the Legend Rule, and I get 6 treasure tokens. Ashley plays a Masked Vandal. On ETB, she exiles a creature from her graveyard to exile Warstorm Surge. Then she casts Champion of Lamholt and passes the turn. David plays a Reliquary Tower, then he casts Shieldred Whispering One. She has Swamp Walk, and at the beginning of his upkeep, he can return a creature from his graveyard to the battlefield. She also forces everyone else to sacrifice a creature at the beginning of our upkeeps. He moves to combat and sends his commander at me. I block it with Mahadi and the shield counter is removed. Thanks to his commander, he can cast the Flayed one from his graveyard by paying 3 life. On ETB, he mills 3 cards and pass the turn. Mark is forced to sacrifice Mahadi on his upkeep. He'll draw and pass. I sacrifice my Mahadi clone on my upkeep. Then I cast Dockside Extortionist, giving me 8 treasure tokens. I'll cast my commander, Be'lakor the Dark Master. On ETB, I draw 2 cards and lose 2 life because I control 2 demons. Then I cast Persist. I choose to return Undercover Operative to play as a copy of Rakdos again. Dockside gets heads. Champion of Lamholt gets heads. Masked Vandal gets tails and is destroyed. Cura gets tails and is destroyed. Shieldred gets heads. Flayed one gets heads. Anrakyr gets tails and is destroyed. When Cura the Boundless Guide dies, Ashley chooses to create a spirit with power and toughness equal to her land count, and I send 6 ETB damage at Ashley from Be'lakor's ETB. After that, I cast Gyruda, Doom of Depths, and we all mill 4 cards. When Gyruda enters the battlefield, each player puts the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard. I put a creature card with an even converted mana cost from among those cards onto the battlefield under my control. I milled Deadeye Navigator, so I choose that. In response to the ETB, Mark casts Deadly Dispute, sacrificing his treasure, making a treasure, and drawing 2 cards. He doesn't draw into an answer, so I present a loop. Using Deadeye Navigator, I can flicker Dockside over and over, netting treasures and getting infinite mana. Then I can flicker Deadeye, pairing it with Rakdos on ETB. From there, I can flicker Rakdos over and over again, dealing 6 damage to everyone with my commander's ability every time Rakdos enters the battlefield. Hope you all enjoyed the gameplay, and until next time, I'll see you at the table. And if you want to see more gameplay featuring this Be'lakor deck list, check out the video on the right. And if you'd like to see a full deck tech breakdown of the deck and steps on how to play the deck, click the video on the left.